It's over. The 49ers 2025 season has come to an end following a 41-6 blowout loss to the division rival Seattle Seahawks. It was a disappointing finish to an otherwise impressive season overall, and while this loss is devastating, it did show some red flags that the Niners will need to take note of if they want to build upon this season and get better for 2026. And we're going to break that all down for you on this episode of Niners Digest. My name is Ethan Galbraith. Thank you so much for watching. The Niners 2025 season may be over, but that just means we are officially in off-season mode. A lot of people are fans of this, myself included, because that means news and updates coming out all the time about the Niners. Hopefully some positive notes as well. But before we look ahead to the offseason, we got to talk about this game. I know that's difficult for myself included, but the game, while a disappointing finish and a lopsided score, did show some flags that I think that the Niners need to take note of and look into for this offseason if they want to get better for 2026 and even beyond. But before we get into all of that, this video is brought to you by Kalshi. When you download Kalshi using the link below and use code DIGESTNFL, you'll get $20 after trading your first 100. Now, Kalshi is the largest prediction market in the United States, and on the platform, you can trade yes or no on real-world events, of course, including sports. Now, whether you're in California, Washington, Texas, Kalshi is live in all 50 states, so you can trade on the platform. And for sports fans, this is huge because you can trade yes or no on player performances, game outcomes, playoff chances, all on a regulated market where you can cash out at any time. Now, the Niners season may be over, but they may be walking away with some hardware still. Christian McCaffrey is the runaway favorite to win Comeback Player of the Year this year. You can trade yes or no on that. What if you're not interested in the NFL? The Niners are done, so are you. Well, the College Football National Championship is right around the corner, and you can trade yes or no on the winner and how much they want to win by, they might win by, and so much more. So make sure to get your $20 when you download Kalshi using the link below with code DIGESTNFL. Thank you again to Kalshi for sponsoring this video. Wow. I think that's the best way to sum up the Niners division round loss to the Seattle Seahawks. Wow. And I don't know if that's positive or negative, to be honest, because just 2 months ago, if you had told me that the Niners would be in the divisional round, I don't know if I would have believed you. I have said multiple times on this show, on this channel, that I didn't know what the Niners ceiling was without Fred Warner. And I think all things considered, with the performance that they put up this season, maybe not this game included, it was a really impressive season. Just not tonight. The Seahawks were the way better team. There's no denying that. They were the better team on paper, and they showed it. From the opening kickoff, they dominated the 49ers. The Seattle Seahawks didn't even need to run an offensive play to outscore the Niners for the whole game. They got it on the opening kickoff. And that's just an absurd stat to think about, but that's the reality of this game. So there's a lot to unpack here. First of all, a usually high-powered offense has now been shut down twice in 3 games by the Seattle Seahawks. And this one was arguably worse, despite the fact that the Niners scored more than in their Week 18 matchup versus the Seattle Seahawks. So let's get right into it. We'll start with the passing game. Brock Purdy didn't have a great game, but if you watch the game, you would know that that's not entirely his fault. Now, I'm not trying to point the finger at somebody else instead of him. He made some mistakes that obviously he is accountable for, but he was running for his life, fighting for his life in that backfield. He ran, I think the broadcast said he ran for over 400 yards in scrambling, trying to get away from the Seattle pass rush. So there's the first red flag that I was talking about, which is offensive line play. It's clear that the offensive line needs a shakeup. Trent Williams is getting older. He has committed to coming back this year or next year in his post-game press conference. He said that's his plan. But the offensive line clearly needs an upgrade. So that's the first red flag that I want to talk about that the Niners need to take note of, because their performance just wasn't acceptable, really. And I understand that the Seattle defensive line and that whole front seven is dominant. That's one of the best in football. But that should be no reason that's not an excuse as to why the offensive line played the way that they did. So that's the first part. And I think Purdy overall played solid. He obviously had the one interception to Luke Farrell, and he had the fumble lost on the sack. So he didn't play great, but I think that was more of a reflection of the offense, which was, they showed flashes obviously throughout this game, but it clearly was not enough. They couldn't stack good plays on good plays, despite showing flashes against a pretty impressive Seattle defense. And then going to the run game, it's not much better. Christian McCaffrey had 11 carries for 35 yards. He was held in check pretty much this entire game, and he was dealing with an injury for parts of it, so he wasn't even available for the entire game. It just wasn't effective. I talked about previously earlier in the season how the Niners run game, which was averaging less than 4 yards a carry, it might just be it is what it is. And that's exactly what it was in this game against the Seahawks. Ironically, overall as a team, they did hit 4 yards a carry. Exactly. But for those who watched the game, you would know it wasn't anything effective really. And most of the efficient yards on the ground are from Brock Purdy scrambling. So it just wasn't a great game. I think it is what it is. I think that was what the idea was a few weeks ago for the Niners run game, and they put up a couple good rushing performances recently. Just wasn't enough, obviously. But the biggest glaring issue, in my opinion, on this offense, aside from the offensive line that needs an upgrade, is the receiving game. Yes, Brock Purdy did not have time to make good throws, and even then, when he did have time, he wasn't always on target. But this is really just a bad look for the Niners offense. And this brings up the second red flag that the Niners need to take note of. There is no wide receiver one on this team. I understand that Ricky Pearsall has been dealing with injuries, but the best ability is availability. And he was available tonight. He was healthy. He would return. 0 catches. He had the one near catch that got ruled an incompletion. 0 catches. That's unacceptable from a wide receiver one. I understand the Seattle defense is great, but as a wide receiver one, you expect a wide receiver one to at least put up a catch in the most important game of the year for the Niners. So I'm not really trying to knock on Ricky Pearsall entirely, just him, because the rest of the receiving core kind of was a little pedestrian. So it's not just him, obviously. Demarcus Robinson had 1 catch. Juwan Jennings had 2 catches. Kyle Juszczyk only had 1. Jake Tonjes was the receiving leader, and that just it's not gonna work. So the second red flag that I'm talking about is the Niners need a wide receiver one, and that's not entirely their fault. It's no secret that Brandon Ayuk was supposed to be the wide receiver one. He got paid wide receiver one money, and we've talked about this a lot in the past. That just isn't going to happen. So the Niners need to make a change. They need to go get another wide receiver. I had talked about how in the past how the Niners need to just go get another receiver to help match Brandon Ayuk's production as a team effort, as a whole wide receiver room. But seeing how the team performed as of late in the wide receiver room, you might need to go get a star wide receiver. I don't know what that looks like logistically in free agency or making a potential trade yet, but that should be on the table for the Niners. Again, this is no disrespect to Ricky Pearsall or Juwan Jennings, because Juwan Jennings is probably getting paid this offseason, whether by the Niners or by somebody else. But it's clear that the Niners need another really big name wide receiver, because what we saw tonight just wasn't going to cut it. And there's no other way to say it. Going to the team stats, which I took note of this because I had taken note of this in the last matchup with the Seahawks, and it was actually a closer on paper. If you saw these team stats compared to the team stats from the Week 18 matchup, you would think probably that this game was closer. But that obviously was not the case. The Niners ran more total plays. Just think about that for a second. Did that really process while you were watching this game? Because it didn't to me. Why? Well, probably because the Niners just couldn't go anywhere. They ran 8 more plays and finished with nearly 50 less yards. That's the tail of the tape right there. That's really all you need to see, in my opinion. You need to see McCaffrey's inability to get positive yardage in the run game, Ricky Pearsall's 0 catches, and the total plays and total yards comparison. Those are the 3 stats. And that tells you the whole story, in my opinion, about this game. So where do the Niners go from here? Well, home, obviously. I'm not trying to make jokes. I'm being serious, but they got to go home and they got to retool. I think there's a lot of reflection that needs to come in here. And it's not like the Niners had a disappointing season. I know that the goal, especially right now in this championship window, is to go win a Super Bowl. But the Niners, with everything that they dealt with this year, with all of the injuries, I don't think many people would have even thought that they would be playing on that field versus Seattle on Saturday night. And yet, there they were, playing on a field in Seattle that Saturday night. So, despite the disappointing performance to end the season, it leaves a bad taste in the mouth, obviously. The season was a success. I called it that last week after they won in Philly. Getting into the tournament and winning a game, especially knocking off the defending world champions in their home building, that's huge. That can't be taken lightly. Winning 12 regular season games with the roster that they had cannot be just looked past. It may seem like that because the overall end goal was not achieved, winning a Super Bowl in your home building to top it all off. But the Niners season was a success. And that's where my final thought is. The Niners season was up and down. There's no denying that. And yet, with a really low, disappointing finish to the season, I still view it glass half full. The glass is actually pretty full on my end. This team was so much fun to watch, how they just kept putting it together and kept fighting every week. There wasn't a game this year where I really thought, we're not winning that game. Even this game, I really thought they had a fighting chance, and it just wasn't their night. And it wasn't their season. But there's no denying that this team was fun to watch, and they will continue to be fun to watch, especially now that they're in off-season mode. They get to recover and refuel and retool and ideally come back even better in 2026. So we'll keep you updated, of course, on all the future Niners news heading into the offseason. But for now, that's all for this episode of Niners Digest. Thank you again so much for watching. My name is Ethan Galbraith, and we will see you in the next video.